Coming up on this episode of Flirtations, we welcome Heidi Friedman to the show, author of the book Love Lessons, 104 Dates, and the Stories That Led Me to True Love. After her divorce and stepping into life as a single parent, Heidi woke up one morning shortly after her 40th birthday with a realization. She wasn't sure she had ever experienced romantic love. So she set out on a journey, one that would take her on 104 dates, and we're going to hear about some of those dates today. We'll talk about dating after divorce, dating as a single parent, and what it means to find love. We explore the fears, the logistics, the judgment, and the hope, and how even after the loss of a previous life, love can still surprise you. Because dating in your 40s isn't about starting over, it's about beginning again, which is kind of the same thing, but you get it. All right, Flirties, let's do this and meet Heidi.
I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. Hello, my name is Benjamin. I'm the flirt coach and a gay Libra. Everyone has an inner flirt.
Hey, Flirty.
Live, laugh, flirt.
Work the flirt.
Work the flirt. Delulu is the Salulu. Expert on the flirt.
Hey, Flirty. There's always another flirt.
Everyone has an inner flirt. Get out of your head and into the flirt.
Flirties. On the show today, we welcome Heidi Friedman. Heidi is the author of Love Lessons, 104 Dates, and the Stories That Led Me to True Love. After navigating divorce and stepping back into the dating world as a single parent, Heidi set out on a journey of 104 dates, and today we're going to hear about some of those dates, plus stories of love, resilience, and self-discovery. Hi, Heidi, and welcome to the show.
Benjamin, thanks for having me. It sounds fun.
Thanks for being on the show today. I think we're going to have a great time.
Great. I love talking dating and all of those things that go along with it.
Good, because that's what's up for discussion today.
Good.
Well, as we get to know you here a little bit more at the top, let's get into it right away. I'd like to read one of the opening lines.
Let's do it.
From your book, you say, I woke up one morning shortly after my 40th birthday and realized that I did not think I had ever been in love. Oh my gosh.
Isn't that? I know. And it's I'm sure people judge me for it since by that time I had 2 kids and had been married and divorced. But I think I'm just a super planner. And I had a plan. I think I wanted to be a mom since I was 12 or something. I'm very strong motherly instinct, and all my friends were getting married. And I would say in retrospect, I did not have the confidence to think I could have the partner like I have today in Will. And while I had tons of self-confidence at work, in my law practice, I did not have it in my personal life. And I was dating somebody at the time. I had been divorced for 5 or 6 years at the time and had gone on a lot of dates already. And I was dating somebody for the first time who I really liked. He was much younger than me, but it was probably the healthiest relationship I had other than my husband. But I still wasn't sure. I was like, and at the time, I now know something was definitely missing, but I was contemplating, is this what being in love is like? I just didn't know. And I realized, you know what? I have no idea. And I come from a situation where my parents have been married for 65 plus years. And it's a very interesting thing. But while I watched it growing up, I didn't know what it felt like. So that's how my journey started.
Okay. I want to hear a little bit.
It's a big admission, though, I will say. I was proud to admit that, even though I'm sure people were wondering how I got married without knowing what true love was.
Well, I want to learn a little bit more. So your book, 104 First Dates, there's 2.
It's not first dates, 104
I'm sorry.
Dates.
104 dates. My bad.
So just to be clear, I did not go on 104.
No.
So I dated about 55 guys.
Okay.
So there was a couple of guys that I dated, including that last one, for several months or went out with 5 or 6 times. But most of them were first dates because I'm a very much one and done if it's not there. But it was not 104 first dates.
Yes. Thank you for that clarification. That's a big difference. And your book really set up in 2 halves. The first half being about what you learned about love through books, through maybe podcasts, TV, family, other relationships. And the other part, what you learned about love through this new journey in dating, these 104 dates happening over about a span of 10 years.
Exactly. 9.5, 10 years. Exactly.
Okay. So coming back to the opening, the opening of your book, I'm curious, having this realization, maybe how did you define love initially, right? Kind of, let's say pre-40.
Pre-40, I felt that you have an attraction and you have a connection and you feel something for that person.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel that at the time I was formulating what I understand now, which is there's so much more to it, and it's so complex. And while I find all these themes that I weave into the book and that I found through my interviews with people that I spoke to who I personally felt seemed like they had strong relationships and were in love. Everyone's a little bit different, but they were true partnerships. They were relying on each other, and there was such deep feelings of connection and safety and feeling like they're at home and all of those things that I don't think I really understood at the time, or at least I knew something was missing or many things were missing, but I wasn't aware of the extent of it and how strong a relationship could be if you don't settle and are actually with a person who is your person and brings out the best in you, which as cheesy as it sounds, I actually feel like it happens.
Yeah, I don't think it's cheesy at all. I think that's something we should strive for. We should want in our relationships, as I think just across the board, we're really starting to renegotiate what love means and what does a relationship mean? What does that look like? How do I want it to feel? How do we go beyond checking the boxes, so to speak, and really create connections that do bring out the best in us? Yeah.
100%. I mean, I really wrote the book while it was written in stages, just as you described. Well done, Benjamin. Thank you.
I did my flirt search.
I definitely wrote, the majority of it the last couple of years, and I decided to put pen to paper at the end of the day for my 4 kids because I wanted them to be so much more thoughtful about picking partners and having long-term relationships. And it really I think it made a difference. My oldest was actually dating somebody at the time that he ended up, after reading the book, and we've had a few discussions, letting that relationship go, which was a very good choice. And he will tell you in retrospect, it was an excellent choice. And so my husband at the time has said, you don't have to sell one book. We're good. It earned what we needed. But I really wrote it for them because I do want them. I can only preach so much. And I thought if I published it, they absolutely had to read it. And now it's fun because we get to talk about dating and relationships all the time. And they think I'm some expert or something. So it's fantastic.
Yeah. All right. And so kind of setting the stage here in the present day for a moment, fast forwarding. To today. So how remarried and a blended family.
Correct.
Total of 4 kids.
Right. 2 I birthed and 2 are my bonus kids.
Okay.
They range from 22 to 29.
Wow.
So some adulting better than others, but we're all getting there.
We're all getting there. All right. We're going to come back to this part of your story in a moment as a lot of the Flirties submitted some questions, right? Send them some questions about how to date as a single parent, dating after divorce, some things, yes, that they are curious about, but rewinding for a moment. So this moment when you had this realization, like that moment when we decide to walk away or to leave a relationship is, sometimes it's really easy. Maybe it's a long time coming, but sometimes it can be really, really difficult. So I want to hear a little bit more about what that decision was like.
Sure. The decision to leave the relationship was actually 5 years before I had the revelation. I don't even think when I left, while I knew it was not a good relationship, I wasn't sure that I didn't have that revelation that we weren't in love or I wasn't in love. But it really wasn't a difficult decision. The other person in the relationship made some bad choices. And it was just one of those things that I was going to therapy at the time. You'll hear me throughout the book. I'm a huge therapy fan. I did so much work during those 9.5 years that made me a better person and a better partner and all of the things. But, I kept asking her, like, when do I know I'm done? And when you have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, your done is higher threshold because you don't want to break up a family. But I was just done after some bad choices. And I did not look back on that choice at the time. It was very difficult, but I also felt that my kids deserved better in terms of, seeing what a good relationship was like. And that the choice to leave, as hard and difficult and painful as it was at the time, was pretty clear based on some events at that time that I'll skip over. We won't give you the details on that.
Okay. So at the time of divorce, your kids were really young.
3 and 5. Yeah. Wow. Almost 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was rough.
About what my parents were divorced as well. When they divorced, me and my sister, I was the older one. I was 7. She would have been around, I think, about to turn 4. There's about 3.5 years difference between us.
And do you remember that clearly?
Like it was yesterday, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, because my kids we read a book to them about how there's sort of a fish and a bird, and the fish can't live in the nest and the bird can't live in the water. And I remember reading this book to them, and both of them really remember that, which I think is so interesting.
Yeah, I remember the conversation. I mean, the 4 of us sat down on the floor of our den, right? 80s house, carpet. And I don't remember exactly what they said or how the conversation went, but I remember I understood what was being said, and I ran into the other room and I started crying. And the only thing I remember thinking is my parents, like, they're never going to be in the same place again. Right? Yeah. They're not going to be in the same house again. And so when one person is maybe like helping my sister, like, do whatever, I get to play with the other one. And now I don't get to do that anymore.
Yeah. It's hard. It's such a hard choice, but I'm a big proponent of, you need, a lot of people, I think, stay together for the kids. And, I'm in no place to judge. I don't know, people have different financial situations and personal situations, but I truly believe that the best gift I've ever given my 2 kids is to now see this spectacular relationship that I'm in. And my husband is actually basically a father to Zach. He's been around for long enough, and their relationship is over the top amazing. And I just, their relationship, other than just having Will in my life, is by far the greatest gift of my life. So, sometimes it's what you can have if you're willing to let go. And that's why I loved the journal entries in the book and finding that journal after so long, because I truly believe sometimes we have to look back to see how far we've come. And it allowed me to do that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in your relationship now, how old were your kids when that started to come together?
Sure. So I was 43 when I met Will. We've been together. No, I'm 55 now. So we've been together for 12 years. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary.
Wow.
And so Zach was 10 when Will came into his life, and my oldest was 13.
Okay.
And his boys were both in middle school. The oldest one was just about to, I think, enter high school, but they were finishing up middle school. So it was an interesting time because, as you know, 1 teenager's enough, but a preteen and 3 teenagers all around the same age. It was like, but I am, one of the things about, you were saying dating as a single mom. So I dated for 9.5 years. I never introduced anyone to my kids.
Okay.
So, and, they went from 3 to, whatever, he was 10, 12, whatever. So, and I never, until Will. And when after dating Will, I think 3 or 4 dates, I just knew. And he met my kids pretty soon after that. But we were super careful about the timing and the way we integrated the kids to each other, which we're so blessed. I mean, the family we created is the thing I'm probably the most proud of in my life. So it's been an incredibly beautiful thing. But the one thing, I think I have a chapter in the book, is not a play date, meaning, your kids are not dating people. And for me, it was, Zach's a super emotive person, and I knew he was lacking a father figure their dad has not really been involved in their lives. And it was one of those things I knew he'd get very attached very quickly. And I just didn't think it was fair to them. And so I kind of hid that part of my life from them for the most part. And they were young. I mean, I think they knew what was going on kind of, but I was very proud of the fact that I had not introduced them to anyone until Will came around.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. That's really helpful, because one of the questions that came through, of course, was like, when do I introduce a potential partner, right, to the rest of my family, to my kids? And so there you go, Flirties.
I mean, and I have friends that have made different choices.
Sure.
I think that a lot of it depends on the age of your kids, the temperament of your kids. I know people that, have second or third dates and with their kids. And I didn't believe in that. I just felt that they deserved a little bit more stability. Obviously, if your kids are adults, it doesn't really probably matter very much. But I think it really depends on the age. And for me, I even dated someone, that last person, we were dating on and off for 5 months, but I would call it a situationship. As my 22-year-old has taught me a new word. I'm not sure it was even really a relationship. We both were single parents and we didn't see each other enough, I think, to call it a real relationship. And so he didn't even meet my kids. So to me, you really need to know to bring them in. My parents did meet one person that I dated, that last person. But other than that, I didn't introduce them to anybody either.
Okay. All right. Well, this leads us to a couple of questions that came through. Okay. One is just like the time piece of things. Like, how did you manage like finding people to go on dates with? Were you meeting people in person, like networking through friends, using any dating apps, and just like how you fit dating into your life?
I'll take the time question first and then the how next.
Okay.
So the time question is just insanity. I mean, when I look back at what my life was like back then, because I'm a partner at a large firm, I'm growing my practice. I will say I was very privileged. I have a national environmental practice and I was traveling. My parents were working at the time they were younger. They weren't grandparents that could just take my kids willy-nilly. And so I needed extra support. So I had the benefit of having an au pair as backup for most of that time period. Okay. It also takes a village. I had a core group of good friends and our original babysitter who had my kids from birth, who we call Nana, who was our adopted Nana, who passed away at 94 a couple of years ago and is one of the most special people in all of our lives. Yeah. And I mean, she couldn't be more thrilled if I was like, can you take the kids for, Saturday night? I mean, it was fabulous. And my girlfriends did me favors and things like that. But I will say I did a lot of my dates, let's say right after work. So by either nanny or babysitter, like I'd meet for a glass of wine at 5:30 so I could be home by 6:30. And I usually keep most of my first dates in a very confined time place. Yeah. Usually with alcohol for me, because it made it a little bit easier. But so that's kind of the time piece. I really relied on a lot of people in my circle, both family and friends, to help. So I could kind of get out there and meet people and do things. Okay. It was interesting. I would say in terms of how the initial dating, when you are 32, 33, I can't remember exactly how old I was, and Jewish in Cleveland, Ohio, everyone and literally their mother fixes you up with somebody. So it was one of those things where I was the only person that was divorced. And the whole thought process was like, she's divorced, he's divorced, let's fix them up. And they were some of the worst dates. I mean, that's when I decided after like the 6th date that I was going to start counting, because this was going to be a bad, long problem.
A marathon, not a sprint.
No. And I mean, it was like, this is what you think of me? Oh my God. It was terrible. Yeah. But then I got into doing some of the dating apps. At the time, it was Match and eHarmony, a little J-Date, which was terrible. And, so it was a combination of both of those. I am a fan of dating apps, actually, as much as my kids are like have a love-hate relationship with Hinge and all of the things. I think it's really good practice. It's like in my head, it's, before a big interview, you're going to practice your questions before a big job interview. And I think you need to go into dating on apps with less expectation. I think it gives you a chance to vet people, but it's really good practice. And I liked the ability to, basically vet people with emails and however, we did it at the time. And then, have a short date. And it was just practice. It was literally like, gave me an open heart, open mind. But the best thing I think that can happen is someone can fix you up. I always say, tell everyone you know outside of your inner circle.
Yes.
So you expand your inner circle that you're looking. And I met my husband through a friend at yoga. So there was 4 of us. We called ourselves the front row crew. We were this type A group that, and for 2 years, I didn't even talk to this person, but we practiced next to each other all the time. We said, hey, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And then we just started talking a little bit, and the 4 of us became friends. And one day she said, what's your deal? And I sort of told her, and I was like, do you know anyone? And she's like, I keep seeing this one guy and I think of you every time I see him. And at the time we were friendly. I wouldn't even call Anne like a friend. Now she's like a sister to me. Yeah. She's got great intuition, and she was talking about Will. And it really, a lot of people just tell people in their inner circle, and then you're never going to meet people outside that circle, which is really what you need to expand. So I did both of those things. There was very few people I met sort of naturally, 1 or 2 at a bar or at an event or something, but not much, mostly either an app or a fix-up.
Okay. So app, and for your in-person though, leveraging networks, both your kind of your close circle, but also looking outside of that, which I think is that's really, really good advice, because how are you going to meet people that or maybe like your close circle, everyone's in a relationship or like something like that.
It's only so big. The visual I always talk about is like, this is your inner circle here. And so let's say I start going to a new yoga class. It's sort of the same thing with me trying to make friends in this new city, right? So I go to this yoga class and I meet somebody and she's outside my circle, and it might, maybe she has somebody to fix you up with or whatever. Yeah. And the more you join and do and meet, the more the wider your circle gets and the better chance. And I don't think anyone should be embarrassed to say, I'd love to date somebody, do you know anybody? Of course, they're going to say to you, what are you looking for? So you have to be ready for that question. But at the same time, then eventually you have these bigger, wider circles around you. Like my oldest joined a running club in where he lives and has met a ton of people through that. And, I always say, especially in midlife, I think, or as a mom, finding something you like to do, then you also feel like you're not wasting your very precious time, whether it's pickleball or clay or I don't know, whatever, and you're going to meet people running. You're going to meet people through that who might know other people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is something I feel like I talk about a lot, the power of connection and small talk, even flirting, getting outside your comfort zone a little bit, trying something new, leaving your house. And then letting go of
leaving your house. That's a good start.
Yeah. And then letting go of those expectations, right? Yes. Like when you were chatting with who is now a friend, Anne, I don't think maybe you weren't directly connecting the dots. Like, oh, she's going to introduce me to my now husband.
Oh my God. I didn't even think. I mean, in a million years, I wouldn't have thought that. In fact, one of my other pieces of advice is don't have rules or don't have too many rules. I mean, you might have a rule. And the reason I say that is because 2 of my rules were I'm not dating somebody more than 5 years older than me. Okay. And I'm not dating somebody who hasn't been divorced for at least 2 years.
Okay.
And my thought process was, everyone needs to sow their own, blue. So Will broke both those rules. Will is 9.5 years older than me. Okay. And he was in the midst of a very long drawn out divorce that took almost 3 years, but he was very much at the end of it, but he wasn't even fully divorced. And Anne's like, you're going. We were just becoming friends. And she's like, I had come off of having to go to a wedding where I sat next to an empty seat, which was so symbolic of my life at the time. Yeah. And so she was literally like, you're going. And so I went, and I can't imagine if I stuck to my rules and didn't go. I mean, that's insanity now that I have Will. So I just think you have to, also minimize your parameters. It's really open heart, open mind, putting yourself. That's why I kind of like the apps and stuff, because when you're doing that, you're in a dating mindset, you kind of have an open vibe, and that open vibe is really important.
All right, let's stay here for a little bit, because saying not to have rules or having those rules and then being willing to break them. I completely understand that. And yet it's like, how did you know like what your standards were? If you had deal breakers, like what type of qualities, maybe values you were looking for, the type of relationship you wanted to feel, right? And so how did you start to identify whether someone was a potential good partner?
No, that is a great question, Benjamin. I think it's an important question. It's interesting because what the deal breakers to me changed over time.
Okay.
And that was, I think, through dating and therapy. Like the two deal breakers for me were, one is I had a very successful career at the time that was growing. And I was not going to allow someone in my life who was not supportive of that. And I'm not being judgy by saying, some men have issues with that, but some men have issues with that. I experienced it. And so that's just, it wasn't going to be a traditional, I'm not going to have an apron and making dinner when you come home. It just doesn't work that way. I hate cooking too, on top of it. So that was the first thing. The second thing was someone had to love my kids. I mean, there was a couple of people, it's interesting because people were first telling me like, you need to date someone who doesn't have kids. And what I quickly realized is I didn't want to date somebody who doesn't have kids. I wanted to date someone who did have kids because connecting on single parenting was so critical and was such a benefit and value to me. So while I wouldn't say I had a clear and fast rule, like no kids, no date or anything like that, I did very quickly realize that a dad was somebody that would be a better fit for me. And then I would say one more thing that was really, I knew from day one that didn't take that much time to develop is I needed a real partner. I needed somebody where we were taking turns taking care of each other. And I was not always the caretaker, fixer.
Yeah.
I think in the book I talk about puller uppers, and I was a serial puller upper and all that kind of stuff. So those were really the only deal breakers. I mean, I even dated people from out of town. I got fixed up once when I was visiting a friend in Florida. I was really trying not to have especially as I went along, too many parameters. But those were how I figured it out. And I would say I figured it out through dating and through therapy. And, I went on a date with someone who was not a dad. And you could just tell by what he was saying that, my kids would never be a priority for this guy. And it was a package deal for me. I really needed someone to embrace my kids as much as they're embracing me.
Okay. What are maybe one or two things that Will did early on that just showed you like, okay, what you just shared, yes.
Ooh, Benjamin, no one's ever asked me that question.
Oh, okay.
Interesting. That's an interesting one. Well, it's a kind of a funny story because I'm a partner in a law firm. So when I use the word partner, people are always like laughing at me, but I wanted a life partner, and not even, in the modern sense, I meant like a true partnership. And the first night on our first date, we both used the word partner in our conversations, which was mind blowing. Although he told me he was never getting married again on that date. And obviously that did not prove to be true. But he was just so kind and thoughtful. It was just ridiculous. Like he brought me, he was old school. The guy had not gone on a date in 26 years.
Oh my gosh.
And I know. Can you believe it? In fact, he still thought you had to call someone. You couldn't text somebody. And
that is
so he had
cute.
called me and hung up, and we ended up, Anne sort of intervened and made me email him. It was so funny. The whole thing was actually really a humorous thing, the way it got going. But, and he just was kind and interested, and I could just tell what a good dad he was. He was the primary caretaker for his kids, I would say, the primary person. And the way he talked about them and the way that I could tell he had the relationship with them and things like that was just fantastic. So, I would say it was so much more the little things than the big things. It was, I would say on our third date, I had invited him over. The kids were at Nana's house, and he was leaving, and he came back in because he hadn't kissed me goodbye. And I knew when he came back in just to kiss me goodbye that this was it. And that was like on our third date. So yeah, it was
like,
fantastic.
I'm not going to lose you. I'm not going to let you walk away.
Well, it was so funny because, like I said, he was in the midst of, I think they signed papers 2 months after. It was just a longer
very
divorce
close,
as that happens, unfortunately, sometimes. And I was laughing as I was saying, don't you want to date? Like, I kept telling him, I feel like you are going to regret not spending time dating. And he said, I've heard all your stories. I'm super good, but thank you so much. And, 12 years later, at least as far as I know, he doesn't regret not dating anybody else.
Yeah. One thing I feel like I'm hearing is, big dating buzzword, authenticity. Like you both showed up like, maybe like, yes, you want to put the best foot forward on a first date kind of thing. And yet you showed up as yourselves.
We both did
from the beginning.
That's so insightful, Benjamin. I like that. And I think that's what's hard with people with dating apps, which is why I was saying your expectations have to be low and it's practice. But you're right. We were both. I think it was one of the themes in the book that the couples talked about was that it felt like home, basically.
Yes.
And while they don't use the word, some of my older couples that I talked to use the word home, but it was just a comfort that so many people talked about. And I felt it immediately. It was like I could tell him anything and trust him, which trust is a huge thing for me. Yeah. And it was beautiful. It was really, and we ended up having we were supposed to have a drink and then we ended up, having dinner and then, an hour turned into 5 hours. It was one of those dates that you truly ended up being this very unexpected, amazing thing.
Yeah. Wow. And time just like flew by. All of a sudden, like you're looking down at your phone, at the watch or whatever, like, oh my gosh, I have to go. Nana's waiting.
Nana's waiting. Exactly.
All right. I want to ask you now, because some of the Flirties wanted to know about this. Like, it sounds like Will pretty much like started dating right away. And then here's a relationship. And then like where I'm going with this question is, how did you know like when you were ready to date again, if you wanted a relationship? Because some of the Flirties going through a divorce or recently divorced are like, I just want to have some fun. I want to have some time.
And that's super cool. I'm just not, I would say I love to have fun. But I am not a casual person, I would say. Okay. I would say that I really thrive on genuine connection. One of my favorite things in the world to do is to connect people to each other. Yeah. I've always been that way, and I just thrive on genuine connection. So I think I'm not saying I've never hooked up or had a one-night stand or anything, especially post-divorce, because I had some fun, but that wasn't what I was looking for. And I think it was because of what my relationship had lacked. I wanted it so badly because so many people around me seemed to have it, that it was what I was focused on pretty quickly. But to answer your question, I would say, so the first 6-9 months, I did nothing but try to focus on my kids and what this looks like. I almost one of those situations, I don't know if you've ever had one, where you feel like you're watching yourself. You're not in your body, you're out of your body and you're watching yourself kind of. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's how I felt. It was just trauma. It was also not an easy divorce situation. So it was, I was the primary breadwinner. It was a very complex situation. And so that took a lot. And my first date actually, and I thought this was like, this is kind of a fun story. I had a like camp love when I was growing up, when I was 16 years old. And I went to overnight camp for 2 weeks and I met this guy from Texas, and we had this 2-week romance or whatever. And then we wrote each other for a really long time, and he sent me like I have all these letters from way back when from Greg. But the funny part was with Facebook at the time was just kind of starting up, and we connected on Facebook, and he was going through a divorce at the same time. He had triplets, and we started talking, and then we decided to go see each other. So we ended up having this long distance thing. He had a company, they did wine distribution. And so he was always traveling for things. And so I met him a couple times, and it was just a very easy way. I wouldn't even call it dating. It was kind of reconnecting with an old friend, but it was just fun. And it didn't last super long, but it was the perfect transition into, okay, after that was over, I felt the divorce was over. I was ready. That was right. I sort of reconnected with him right as I was finalizing my divorce. So, and then I felt ready after that to start dating. But I mean, listen, I took breaks from dating. There was a lot of ups and downs. There was a lot of, crying in bed, and I don't know how I'm going to do this, but then you just put your big girl underwear on and get back up and do it again.
There's always another flirt. Yeah, you're 104 dates over a span of 10 years and really chronicled in your book. We're going to end in a moment with a few other questions that the Flirties submitted, but I want to come back to the first part of your book. And what are some of the maybe dating, love, relationship lessons you feel like you learned, maybe even doing therapy, that you took forward into these 104 dates?
Sure. I would say, what I love that the book allowed me to do was to take the research that I conducted on with all these people. And it didn't matter. It was same sex, older, younger, whatever. It was the same themes, which was so powerful to me. And then my own relationship and these dates and wind them together. And, the one that requires no explanation at all is do not settle. I mean, it's just so clear, right? Yeah. I mean, that part is super easy. But I would also say that one of my favorite things that I also learned is there's a little luck and magic to all of it. And while I agree with you that, and I'm a huge advocate, like, unless you're dating, I always make the same joke, it's probably getting old, but unless you're going to date the Amazon guy, sitting on your couch ain't going to get you introduced to anybody. Right. So it just doesn't make sense. So so you really do have to put yourself out there, but there is luck and magic. And I'll tell you a quick story. Okay. So Will, in 2009, he was working for a very large real estate company running a division. And he lived in Indianapolis at the time. And because of the market crash, they closed the entire division and he lost his job. And at the time, he had 2 kids that were like barely in middle school. His ex-wife did not work at the time. He ends up having to move them to Cleveland to take this job as CEO of the Port of Cleveland, which is how he meets my friend, right?
And that's where you were.
At the time, if you ask him, he literally would tell you that was the lowest point of his life. He's a very successful individual. He thrives on success, and he's an excellent leader in all of the things. And at the time, he thought, and if that never happened, we would not, it would seem impossible to think about, we would not be together. And so I always tell my kids, like, when something happens, good luck, bad luck, who knows? You don't know what's going to happen with all of that. So anyway, so I think there is luck and magic to it, because as much as Anne helped make that happen, I had an open mind and an open heart and all of those things. That you do have to give a little bit up to the universe and know that.
Yes, you do.
And I think you got to believe that.
There's definitely a timing piece to all of this that is just like, I can't tell someone when they're going to meet their person, their next date, their next relationship. I'm asking that question for myself all the time, like looking up at the universe, freaking when, but you can't really ask the universe those timing related questions. At the same time, there's so much you can do, because what if you hadn't gone to yoga? What if you hadn't started talking to Anne? What if she had tried to introduce you to this person? You just said like, no, I'm not really feeling it. What if you had the date set up? What if, I don't feel good. I'm tired. I got a lot of work. I want to stay home with my kids. I want to watch TV, whatever. I
want to watch The Bachelorette. Yes, exactly.
There are so many instances where there were a lot of chances for it not to happen. But you said yes to a lot of those opportunities. And I see a lot of dating as, do you see things as opportunities or obstacles?
Right. Well, and it's just, and I tell my kids this too, from every date, from every relationship, you learn something.
Yes.
So try to figure out what you're learning from that situation, what you want or don't want, what works, what doesn't work, and just look at it like it's a process. And, you just, the fear is don't pair up to just pair up. You just really need to make sure that that person is your person. And the other thing I really learned is is you have to be your best self before you're ready for someone else. And like that's another sort of cheesy phrase, but I have met so many people who seem like they're ready, they think they're ready to date. And I just know that they have a lot of work to do. And I tell my kids that too. Like you need to be an attractive person for somebody else and have a stable, you just have to have done your work. You don't want to show up with luggage that fills the room or baggage that fills the room. You want your little carry-on and you've packaged it up, and everyone's got baggage. I had baggage. Will heard about my baggage on our first date. But you just don't want baggage that fills the room. And so I just think it is a matter of like making sure you're really ready versus you think you're ready because you're single kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, yes, you're allowed to have some carry-ons and you don't have to be fully healed today. And what I feel like I'm hearing you say is you have to show up with the energy and the mindset of the person that you're ultimately looking to attract. Like
100%.
That's at least like fake it till you make it. If you got to have the audacity to just be confident, Delulu is a saludo.
Right.
Rely a little bit on that if you got to, but we're not looking to settle with those people that, are just want someone because they need some validation,
right?
Or they're bored or whatever. They're just looking to be taken care of. They're a project in and of themselves. Like
exactly. No projects. I have a chapter on that.
Projects.
I have a chapter on that.
No projects. What were in doing some of this research, some of the initial like red flags, like a few things that people should look for, how people maybe show up, how they behave, things they might say. Yeah, what do you think?
I think red flags are different for everybody.
Okay.
So, I mean, it was, it depends on what you're looking for. For me, a red flag was anyone that said anything negative about my kids or my job or things like that. I definitely am always hesitant when there was a couple of people that were a little cagey about whether they're separated or divorced. I think you really need to, I mean, nowadays between ChatGPT and Google, you can like figure most things out. So, I mean, I used to I would Google back in the day just to make sure they didn't kill anybody or weren't bankrupt or whatever. But that was about as far as you could go, so many years ago. Now you have a little more technology to help you out. But, I think that is one of the issues that I felt happened to me and came up a couple of times. I also think, for me, it was a super red flag if someone had kids and had no relationship with them. I mean, that was just something that scared me and I didn't know why that was or didn't have the patience to find out. So I think it's just, it just depends on what they are. I mean, I'll tell you a quick funny dating story. I met this guy on Match. I meet him for a drink. And this is when you're so happy you have little kids at home. Oh my God. And he gets to the counter. He literally had in the pictures, he had like a head of hair like you, Benjamin, like gorgeous hair, whatever. He has no hair on his head, and which I don't even care about. Like frankly, like that.
I love a bald head.
Okay, so I would have been I would have gone still. I think a lot of bald guys are hot. Whatever. Anyways. But don't fake it. And then we get there. We're there for 5 minutes. He pulls out these papers from Pepsi. It's a cease and desist order. And he basically wanted my legal advice because he stores Gatorade in his garage that he sells, and Pepsi's going after him. So we went on the date because and so I was out of there.
Oh, that's so
a red
bizarre.
flag.
Yes.
So I would just say when you are dating online, have a backup plan. I was, I had my kids texting. Basically, at the time, it was, I think my daughter was 8 and actually had a cell phone for other reasons, which I won't get into. But when they went to go visit the other parent, we needed a cell phone. So, and so I would text and say, "Oh, can you send me a text real quick?" And then I'm like, "Oh, I got a text from my daughter. I have to, leave." Yeah. So, anywho, that you do need a backup plan, but I would say we all have our, different red flags.
Yeah, we've definitely all got our own variables, our own red flags. Like a couple that come to mind for me, like this one I've talked about before from the Gottman Institute, the bids for connection. So let's say you're out to dinner, you're on a walk, you're getting ice cream or something. You're just like, oh, right, look at that person's jacket. It's so cool. They're like, oh, this on the menu looks so good. I'm really curious. Haven't had this before. Do they acknowledge you? Do they seem like they want to reciprocate and engage with what is a bid for connection, or are they completely dismissive? Do they try and all of a sudden become condescending, like, oh, God, that looks gross. Who would ever eat that? Red flag.
Right.
I practically can't get out of there fast enough. It's not about what I'm reading on the menu. It's about I'm trying to engage and connect with you. Another one in these initial dates is like if you don't know what you're looking for at least a little bit, or you're kind of spinning your wheels as if you're trying to convince me so you can convince yourself why you're dating, I'm out. I'm out. If you're confused, I'm not going to be confused.
Or then
you.
You're not ready. That's my whole, like, you're not the best you. I love all of those. I mean, I especially think today with like people addicted to their phones and technology, like true connection is so hard, and you have to work harder for it than ever. So you really need to be intentional about it. And so if someone's not making the time to be intentional, it's just going to be a misfire.
Yeah. All right. We just glancing down at the clock before we say goodbye, and I send all the Flirties your way to pick up the book and listen to your podcast.
Yes.
With Zachary. Yes. I want to end here this question from a Flirty who just kind of coming full circle, who says, I'm nervous, right? I'm on the verge of experiencing some of this myself. The divorce is imminent. It's coming. I'm going to be a single parent looking to date again at some point. I'm scared.
So amen, sister or brother or whoever. I think that's true. I would urge you to tell your brain that it's not nervousness, it's excitement. I would try to twist that feeling into opportunity and excitement. What if? Maybe what will I find? And even though you're nervous, I remember, like, you know, TMI, being so nervous, like someone's going to be seeing me naked after all these years. Like, that is just not a good plan. But, you know, that's when reconnecting with an old friend makes life a lot easier. But, you know, it is nerve-wracking. So I would say, I always say, first start with self-care. Do something that makes you feel good. It's always different, you know, and everyone has, you know, different financial parameters and different things. So whatever it looks like for you, do something that makes you feel good. Okay. And then I would just say, you know, look at it like every time your brain tells you you're nervous, explain to it that you're excited. Just have some kind of mantra. I used to say to myself, like, what if? Or like, what if it's it? What if it's every time I was like getting nervous, I'm like, what if it's it? What if it's it? You know, you got to just kind of tell yourself something that I think will allow you to put yourself out there. And frankly, if you end up on a date with someone who you might connect with, they'll make you feel comfortable. And if not, then you're just practicing, and practice is great.
I love it. I love it. Heidi Friedman, thank you so much. The book, Love Lessons, 104 Dates and the Stories That Led Me to True Love. It's amazing, y'all. I got a copy, and your reviews are very, very good.
Oh, so, thank you. It's been very well received. I have to say, like, I thought it would hit the divorced mom segment, you know, because people send me emails, which has been so amazing. But the two things that I did not think, so I can't, maybe it's because they're people my age, but how many people have bought it for their adult kids in their 20s and 30s? And I hear from these kids that like find it fascinating, which it could not make me happier. And then a lot of married couples have read it and written to me about how much it made them reevaluate their current relationship and want to make them work harder, which is just, my heart is so full. I feel like if I can spread a little love and hope in this crazy world we're in right now, I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, is it available in all the places, your Amazon?
It's available on the places. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on Barnes & Noble. Yes. I am doing a podcast with my son, Zach, called I Love You More on Spotify and Apple. And we have 4 episodes out. We had to take a little hiatus, but we are coming back. And we talk a lot about the generational differences between love and dating. And it's been so much fun. We're having a great time.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations on the book, the relaunch of I Love You More.
Yeah, I Love You More.
Yes, I will have the links for both of those in the show notes below of this episode. Heidi Friedman, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being on the show today. This was super fun. I appreciate all the flirty questions and the great way to share more of my story.
Yeah. Final last thing here. Any last thoughts or words of wisdom for the Flirties?
have an open heart and an open mind. Just put yourself out there. You don't say that you're going to do it over and over again without doing it. Really, almost mentally, I like it in yoga when they do heart opening exercises, almost doing a heart opening exercise, which, and really want to tell the universe that you are welcoming some love in, because we certainly all deserve what I have with Will.
I love that. As soon as we click done here, I'm going to go teach my yoga class. All right.
You're doing all my favorite things, Benjamin.
I'm going to do some heart opening today in honor of you and our conversation.
Oh, I love that. Those are the best. It's fantastic. We all need that. Well, it's so fun to be with you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Heidi. All right, Flirties, that's a wrap on this episode of Flirtations, the Dating After Divorce and Dating as a Single Parent episode of the program. Thank you so much to Heidi Friedman for being on the show today. Y'all, to pick up her book, Love Lessons, that link in the show notes below for this episode. To check out the podcast with her son, Zachary, that link in the show notes below as well. Thank you, Heidi, for being on the show today. And thank you to the Flirties for listening, for tuning in, for streaming wherever you are in the world. I really appreciate you being a part of these episodes, these conversations. Thank you so much for being here, for your support, likes, shares, comments, all the things. I really appreciate it. Please rate, review, subscribe to the show if you haven't already. If you have, thank you so much. And then share this episode or another favorite episode of the show with a friend, someone you want to share some BFE, Big Flirt energy with. All right, that's going to do it for me here officially at Flirt Headquarters, signing off. My name is Benjamin. I'm the Flirt Coach and Gay Libra. Flirty. Happy flirting.